it's your mission and purpose in life, because money is not eternal. When I finally let that go, that's when I was like, this is my mission. I don't care about my. Here's the funny thing, brother. Once I said that and yes to that, then the abundance came. He's like, now here's all the riches and here's all the things you need. It's wild. Once you let
Right.
go, that's how it works.
Welcome to the Abundant Mind podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jake Hansen, and I am incredibly excited. This is 2 years in the making to bring on this incredible guest, Erik Cabral. So you and I met in Miami. You were keynoting at one of the conferences out there. I always go with questions in mind before I go to a conference. I always go with, who can I help? Who can I serve? Who could help me get where I want to be faster? Who has the same core values that I have that can get me where I want to go and that I could possibly help? And you kept popping up time after time again. Erik, he's a brand expert in truly creating your brand. He's Fortune 500 companies, 100, 5,000 companies. They use Erik to define their brand. He's built thousands of brands over a century of a career. He's created a stage in which he's been able to partner powerhouse brands like Shark Tank, Matt Higgins, Kevin Harrington, VaynerMedia, Dave Meltzer, good mutual friend of ours. You truly are an expert in your niche. You guys watching this podcast, you are here because you're a business owner and you are wanting to take your life and your business to the next level. Inevitably, something is hitting you right now that's not allowing you to move forward. It always starts right here in our mind. And Erik, I would love to be able to share your message with even more of the world through this platform today. So welcome to the podcast, brother.
Thank you so much, man. I'm so honored. I'm glad we were able to catch up before the mics and the cameras turned on. So thank you for that, but also thank you for having me share, and hopefully I can add some value to your audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things, you guys, that's so critical to understand, you have a moral obligation to play big. You have been given experiences, trials, tribulations. You've been given experiences that will either propel you forward or it can cripple you. It can take you down. Erik and I were talking about some of the things that I've had to go through with my health, and I've determined, I am an entrepreneur at heart, and I want to be able to not just have, linear success in my life. I want to have exponential success. As I researched who you were when I first heard you on stage, I'm like, oh my gosh, like this guy is a heavy hitter. He is everywhere. He was just doing lunch with who? He was just consulting with this company and that company, but you live your life and your faith. I would love to ask you about that. Was that a conscious decision that you've always made in your career to live your faith and to live what you believe? Or is there a time where you decided enough's enough? I want to live what I believe, but still be a business owner?
It's been a journey for sure. Just quick background so people have context. But to answer your question up front, no, it's been a journey. I'm blessed to be here with you and to finally have clarity in my mission, which is the mission in the kingdom for Christ. But it's interesting, though, being raised in a secular world and working in a secular world, how different, I'm 52 years old. I just turned 52 this summer, brother. And the thing is, I remember the days when it was a God-fearing country. And that I was conscious or aware or paying attention, but now that I'm paying attention, I have the contrast. I could say, oh, wow, I remember when in Christmas time, people had the nativity scene on their lawn. In my neighborhood now of 90 homes, there's not a one. Not a one. Corporate America, most of my life, did everything that I needed to do, everything that I was told to do to stay in a company for 100 years and collect that gold watch and steak knives at the end. It didn't work out that way.
And steak knives.
I realized that that's all a facade, right? And I was like, let me get out of here. I started reading books. I started reading entrepreneur books. And one of the ones that they say red pilled, reference to the Matrix, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it changed my life. I was like, oh, wow, I know nothing about money. I am financially illiterate. The book had plenty of opportunities to make me feel that pain. So I left and I started a business, and I was still of that scarce mindset, not an abundant mindset, not a God-fearing, Christ-loving business owner yet. But what I was doing was trying to survive and taking what I learned through corporate America, which was great in business. It helped me to start a business for sure and get into invest in real estate and eventually get into the room with wealthy individuals that had an abundant mindset because I had no exposure to those type of people. I was like, oh, wow, these investors, every time I speak to someone here in this environment where there's millionaires to Deca, the one common thing I noticed, Jake, that they would say at the end of every conversation, whether it was 30 seconds or 30 minutes, they go, how can I help you? How can I serve you? You have everything. Why would you help little old me? Yeah. And that's when I started to try to unfold and unpack and started to understand that all the stuff I'm listening to, Tony Robbins, Jim Rohn, Brene Brown, whoever it was, everything they're saying is basically regurgitating scripture. All of it.
Yeah.
The Go-Giver, which would change my life. That's another book, The Go-Giver. I was like, this is all Christ-like content. Everybody's just saying the same thing, but they're not giving praise and glory to God. That's a recent thing. And I was mentioning to you before we started recording that Miami was one of the main catalysts for me embracing and acknowledging that, because I would never, all glory get to me, pat myself on the back, hey, you're the best, you're awesome. But then I think you probably saw a butterfly cocoon on stage sort of emerging with that understanding that it was more than just me.
That's incredible. It's to live what you believe is everything. One of the things that I live by is I will not lie to myself. When I first started hearing this, Dave Meltzer was one of the first people who really started hitting this home for me. And he's like, Jake, are you lying to yourself? And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, hey, you shared with me, you're going to be getting up at this time, doing these things. And you just shared that it didn't happen. And you just shared you're doing this and that didn't happen. He's like, that's lying to yourself. And I started really realizing, as much as I thought that I was really living what I believe, when I lie to myself by not truly living what I believe and doing what I say I would do for myself, for God, for my family, for the activities I get paid for, I was living a life of not feeling truly fulfilled in my practice, as a chiropractor, right? When I'm out and about meeting with people and I share what I do, I'm not going to shove chiropractic down their throats. And some people some people are the biggest fans you could ever imagine. Some people are like, nope, no, thank you. And same when it comes to my faith. I'm always willing to be open. And I love that you were able to sprinkle in, but it very much for me was, oh, this guy is founded in Christ. This guy lives what he believes. And a lot of the docs that we coach, a lot of business owners that we're talking to right now, you guys, this is going to be a catalyst for you to truly understand, what do you believe and are you living it? As a chiropractor, I first would say, man, I'm going to help Eric. I'm going to help everyone under the sun. Oh, if you're breathing, oh man, I can help you. I started seeing this whole gambit of everybody, but I also wanted to work with athletes, and I also wanted to do this and do this and do this. And man, I was everywhere but nowhere. I was running on a treadmill and I was doing a lot of good, but I had nothing to show for it. I wasn't fulfilled. I was exhausted. And so and that day when I said, you know what, I would much rather aim small, miss small, and really micro niche and have a target audience for who my message can go to. And I have been so much more fulfilled. We went from helping over 1,000 patients a week in our practice to significantly less than that. And I feel more fulfilled. Financially, we are abundantly blessed where I can do things like this that really fulfill me. For the business owner listening to this, what counsel would you give them when it comes to truly finding, are they being honest with themselves and living what they believe in their business? How do they identify that? Are they being truly authentic and living what they believe in their business?
A lot of people, especially who market or trying to market and do sales for their business, a small, mid-sized type of business, they will tend to be for everyone. You're not being super clear, or maybe you lack clarity on who specifically you serve. And once you find that clarity and you put it out there in a very authentic way, in your own way, then people will raise their hand and go, hey, Dr. Jake, I want to work with you. There's 100 people that do what you do in the area, but I love you and what you stand for. So that's where the work that we do, very first thing that I do, try to identify who you are and help you get there by identifying your core values, your systems, your beliefs, all the things that are embedded in you that you haven't been putting out there, or maybe you're putting a version out there that you think people want to see and hear, versus putting out something that is truly you with very little care for what people think. Because once you do that, that starts the relationship and the handshake and the trust over time, because then now they're like, holy moly, thank you for putting this out there, because no one's saying this. Everything that you and I have been discussing, even before the cameras turned on, was about that. Like just truly putting yourself out there with very little fear of offending people. And I'm not saying to go out there and just start offending people to be relevant or to gain attention.
Right.
It's really just about identifying who you are so that you can put it out there authentically.
And that's key. You know, when actually going back to Florida, we had a whole group, you know, after you spoke, we went to place, it's farm to table. And so for you guys, there's this gentleman who has created this brand. Like he lives what he believes. On the door, there's local government officials on the door of the store. He's like, hey, these are people shutting down your rights. These are people who don't want you to buy these types of foods, watch this type of content. They want to inhibit your freedom to speak, you know, your freedom to bear arms. He had pictures of them on the wall. If you have these core values and these belief systems, you can't vote for these people. And this is this business makes $1 million a day in one of their stores. $1 million a day. He's a very conservative Republican, you know, type mindset. It's a whole different type of fire when you talk left versus right, Democrat versus, you know, Republican, blah, blah, blah. But he lives what he believes. And guess what? People who have the same core values, when we were there going around the store, people are like, oh yeah, we're from Kentucky. We flew in and just so we could come eat here today and come here for a couple of days. We're like, you came here from Kentucky? Like, oh yeah, oh yeah, we're from California. Oh yeah, we're from Illinois. And people are coming out of the woodworks to support what he created. You guys, people are going to come out of the woodworks to support what you have created when you are authentic. Authenticity, that's the emotion. That's the catalyst that's going to get you in front of the masses of who you want to see. And I'll never forget the day one of my clients he was flying me out to Lambeau Stadium on his jet. He said, hey, one of my buddies and his girlfriend are going to come. So we'll stop at this other place, we'll go. And as we were flying, and there were some things that were against my core values that this guy brought on board. And I had seen enough of this backwater, behind the scenes view of that world. And I thought, this is the world. This is not who I am. I'm on a private jet, caviar and $5,000 sushi rolls. And I thought, this is not what I want. And I really discovered what makes me tick as a chiropractor. And it really is, it's treating young families, especially, you know, young mamas and babies and kids with neurodevelopmental disorders. That's who I love to see. I have a question for you. Eric is the founder of On Air Brands. You can see it right behind him, which is amazing. Be Your Brand PodMAX. We'll talk about his investment group. He has his feet in a lot of incredible arenas of where he wants to be. The question I have for you, Eric, is what is an indispensable tool or discipline that you use when you feel a lack of, or as you've shared, like a scarcity mindset creeping in?
Honestly, and I probably would have answered this differently a year ago. It's the Bible, brother. It's the Bible. I read it every day. And the thing is, I was aware of it as a child. I was aware of it as a young adult. I used to appreciate when the Bibles were in hotels everywhere. And I've recognized now that they're no longer in the drawers, which upsets me. But as an adult, I realize, and honestly, you know, for those of you who are like, oh, maybe it's a little cringy, I would say to you, then that even more so the reason to look into it, because I think it's worth checking out why and asking yourself why. But the thing is, the approachable aspect that gave me context was the show, The Chosen. Like when that came online and I started to just watch a little bit of it, it made me want to go to the Bible for the source. And it's funny because, you know, we watch movies, you know, and people often say, oh, and it's kind of like a pretentious thing to say, you know, like, oh, the book was way better. And there's probably only one or two movies that I could say that for. But in this case, 100% truth. It's like the book is way better. But what's great about the show is it gives you context for all the things in the lives of the disciples around Jesus during that time. And you appreciate what you've read over your lifetime, or if you're picking it up for the first time. That for sure has been my rock and savior and everything when I start my day. Truly, man, there's no question.
There's no one way to do anything in life. There's no one way to do a podcast. There's no one way to run a business, but you have to find your way. There's so much evidence that I have in my life. You know, when it comes to the law of tithing, right? I have a major testimony of tithing, brother. I have discovered that I can do far more with 90% of my income. I do 1/10 of my tithe, some other, you know, offerings and charitable donations. But I found, man, Eric, I can do far more with 90%, far more than I can with 100%, because giving that to God has truly blessed my life. I know that. So what we're sharing with you guys is you have to find your way. Is there a time in your business that you can truly say, oh man, this relationship, this investment, this outcome, this would not have happened if you hadn't have fallen back on your core values, your belief system in God and Christ and the Bible?
Oh man. Yeah. There's so many. It's everything, literally everything. I didn't recognize that in the past. I'd give myself all the credit. I'd give my business partners or chalk it up to coincidence, circumstance, whatever it is, understanding and knowing that it's divine intervention. It's all him. Right. But for those that, yeah, I love these stories. There's so many. One in particular, I remember I was away on business. I'm trying to remember. I was in Charleston, South Carolina. I was sleeping in, that's what I was. I was doing some work with a client, building his personal brand, which has exploded, by the way. He had no brand. I highly recommend. I'm sorry for the shameless plug, but he's a good friend of mine too. Josh Hatter. He's into boutique hotels and short-term rentals, of which he was growing. And now he's, doubling, tripling, 10xing over time. And I'm not saying that the work that, yeah, it's and personal branding has definitely for sure helped elevate that brand and who he is. But I was in one of his properties, a beautiful historical property in Charleston, and I was praying. I had my family with me. That's another wonderful thing, as business owners, we get to do double time with mixed family and business. So I'm laying there in the morning and I'm praying. Actually, probably in the evening. And then I get a message, a dream, whatever you want to call it, an answer that says, I'm bringing them to you. And literally that morning, I got a message from someone in town that said, hey, you're in town. Can we meet? He shows up on the porch of this property at 7 a.m. I'm like, I'm ready. I'm awake. And he's like, I get up early, so I'll be there. We literally spoke on the porch for probably 2.5 to 3 hours, and he became a client. I mean, how do you explain something like that where I'm praying, and then all of a sudden I'm sending them to you is the message that I received. And they literally show up within hours at my doorstep. So that's a profound one. There's so many of them. But yeah, I just feel so blessed to finally have that peace, because I used to stress all the time. We don't control everything. And if you try to control everything, if you try to put your hand on all of the things that are in your life and move it and push it towards a certain direction, and you don't have the expectation that it's not under your control and you can't push and pull every single thing in your life, man, that's going to cause you a lot of undue stress. It's going to affect your health. I used to have chronic back problems. I read a book by Dr. Sano called Healing Back Pain, and basically, I'll save you time from reading it. It's a great book. I recommend it. But his message is basically that it's all because of stress. And I started to recognize all those areas of time in my life when I had a major back issue that I couldn't get off of a plane, or I couldn't show up to a certain event, or I was because I was in bed for 3 days. There was something major happening in my life and I was trying to control it. Like, give it to me. I was trying to chokehold it. But then once I found this path, I'm able to let go of all that, and I have no stress. I mean, there's stress, but it's nowhere near at the level 10 that it used to be. Now I maybe experience a 2 or 3 on that.
Man, thank you for that. I want you guys to pause and think on this with what Eric just shared. Why is it that we can have a heart's desire and we can pray for it, meditate on it, research it, but we don't take time to listen to what that answer might come back as? I've always been pray as if everything depends on the Lord, and then go work as if everything depends on you. And so many times I'm giving these billion-dollar prayers and then I'm off to the races afterwards instead of pausing.
If we don't practice, I'll call it meditation, because that's where it all started for me, was just quieting the mind. And when you quiet the mind, because we all have monkey brain, and that takes practice, and practice gets you to a degree where, okay, my mind was quiet for 10 seconds, and then eventually 30, and then eventually minutes. That allows the door to be open long enough for something to come in, for someone to come in, and then you can receive that information and know it as divine and know it as not your thoughts, because it's clearly something different. It only happens when you allow for it, when you believe in it. We always expect, I want this now. And that's another big challenge for us. When we pray, it's all about me, give me, versus just gratitude, brother. Just, I am so grateful for everything that I have, for my family, for my health, for Jake, for everything and everyone that you've placed in my life. And then I always ask, please place within my heart what is yours and remove what is not, so that this way I can discern where I'm supposed to go. Values is the very first thing that I try to help people with in our company. I identify who you are so that you could put that out there with clarity, so that they can raise their hand and come to you. But then at the end, I'll fast forward, spoiler alert, it's your mission and purpose in life. Because money is not eternal. When I finally let that go, that's when I was like, this is my mission. I don't care about my. Here's the funny thing, brother. Once I said that and yes to that, then the abundance came. He's like, now here's all the riches and here's all the things you need. It's wild. Once you let
Right.
go, that's how it works.
To be able to be authentic to who you are, it's a lifelong endeavor, right? But you need to have a mentor and a coach and someone else who can take a 30,000-foot view and say, here's what I'm seeing. I can see you. I can see your expertise as you go in. And again, there's a lot of conversations where, I don't hear God, I don't hear Christ, and that's fine. You're doing business, but you're coming from your state of authenticity of who you are, and you're able to help these incredible brands to grow massively, to hone in on their ideal client and on their ideal, target market, and micro niching in their specialties. I mean, you truly are an expert at this. But I love, and again, as I was praying about this podcast, as I was pondering it, we could have just talked about on-air brands. We could have talked about, hey man, when you had a down day, what made you not quit instead of going forward? But that's truly where I want to understand you are a man of authenticity. How rewarding is it for you to take a client that has been so aimless and they're doing okay, and then to see them not only thrive financially, but to see them truly have joy because they've now clicked with who they really are? I mean, what does that really feel in your heart?
It brings me so much joy. And I need to define what joy means, because I didn't, joy is a very universal word and people say, oh yeah, joy to the world. But what I found is that how it gives me true joy, brother, is really joy to me is whether things are good or bad, whether I'm experiencing light, love, or darkness, because it's all seasonal, right? We have hard times, we have good times. Joy present in my life, dude, is really just that feeling, whether things are going good or bad that day or in life or that season. Everything you poured into me before you started hitting record, man, that is the joy that you bring. And I get those stories all the time now. It could be 1 a week, it could be 10 a week, it could be 0 a week, but whatever it is, I always appreciate it when it enters the room and my heart, because I'm like, wow, I was born and put on this planet to do, and that is to help others. That is to serve others, especially if they have a larger mission in life than just, I got to make money. Typically, if someone, and you could sense that right away, that's a red flag to me, is like, it's all about them. It's all about ego, and it's all about making money. I feel sad for them, honestly. I don't judge, but I do feel like, man, I hope someday you realize it's bigger than that.
You honestly, with your skill set, if someone came in, I'm like, dude, I'm floundering, I'm drowning. You can give them the process after discovering who they are, who their business is. You can give them a process, say, okay, guys, let's get you back on track. You're on track for bankruptcy or for shutting things down and turning things off, closing doors and putting up, pulling down the blinds. You have the skill set to be able to get people through that. I can help you in the emergency. I can get you there. But where I feel you really thrive is, I mean, you can make anyone 100 grand. You can make anyone 1 million. You can make anyone 10 million. But what I love about your branding is you're going to make it about them. You're going to teach them, well, who are you first? Who are you? Because I can get you 100 grand, but is that reproducible? And are you going to be exhausted and dead at the end of the day? Are you a jerk when you come home and you don't want to be? Are you short-tempered? Are you quick-tongued? Do you lash? I mean, the tongue can lash and leave remarks that will last a lifetime if we're not careful with those we love. So you can make people money, but are they happy? Do they have joy? With our businesses, I love it when people come in and they look around, they're like, dude, this is so you, man. Like, this makes so much sense. Like, this is homey. This is not a doctor's office. Like, what is that smell? Is that pumpkin spice? Like, it's who I am, man. It's authentic to who I am. So for those of you guys who you're at a point in your career where you're ready for the next step, you're ready to go from one tier to the other tier. Well, we'll have Eric's information down below here, but I want you to reach out to Eric. And a lot of you here are massively, massively successful, but you're burned out. You don't have the right team. You don't have the right systems. You don't have the right platform. Let Eric help you. Let Eric help you get there. For those who are truly at a point in their career, and it's twofold. They're either giving up because it's simply too hard, or they're going to give in and not live what they believe. What's your counsel to them?
The toughest thing that you can go through in life is and this is a large majority of people, so I'm probably going to resonate with everyone, is not having a purpose in life, not having a mission. And the thing is, you can't have a mission or purpose in life if you don't know who you serve. And if you don't know who you serve, you have to look in the mirror first, because it's typically who you once were. It was someone that was floundering, and you figured something out, and you found the answers to solution. You found the solution to problems that people were having, mainly for yourself. Everything was for you. At some point, you create a business out of it and you solve those problems. So the funny thing that people come into my company is they'll say, "Hey, Eric, help me identify my core values and who I am." Well, the very next step is, who do you serve? How do you help them? How do you pinpoint the solutions and the problems that they're having and the solutions that you have for them? And then we can start building towards the mission and purpose during that period of time as we identify who you are and serve. So I'll liken it really quickly. Sorry, Jake, but I think it's a great analogy in that when people come to work with us, they walk in the room thinking, I'm Luke Skywalker and I want to figure out what I need to do. I'm a farm boy, and I'm working with carburetors and droids and the thing is, they think they're Luke Skywalker, but the work that we do together, they ultimately realize that they are Obi-Wan Kenobi. And I am, you realize you're the guide in someone else's life. Yeah, you may be the hero in certain points of your life and in your family's life and your business, but ultimately we're here to serve. Ultimately, we're here to help and have a larger purpose in life. And that's where I love doing that. That work is everything to me.
You are truly an example of someone in my life who is on purpose with what you do. You really do live your life on purpose. Everyone listening, to you listening, you have to find your purpose. You are indispensable. You're 1 in 8 billion. You are so unique. You have an obligation and you have the right to be happy. People don't realize how good they're supposed to feel. Eric, thank you for giving to me this day and for being willing to live your faith and being willing to share that faith on this platform. I really appreciate that. And I applaud you for that. May you guys listening understand you can have everything you want in life in abundance when you help those who you are supposed to serve get exactly what they want. Thank you, Eric.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, brother. I appreciate you.